Hi guys, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if this isn't the first time that you see my face. My name is Famke and this is the second video of my True Crime Thursday series. In these videos I talk about a true crime case from Europe because I feel like not a lot of people talk about these, probably because all of the news resources are in a different language. So I made it a little bit easy for myself and I choose the cases that are from my country, which is Belgium. Welcome. I know, it's great. And also I transform my face from this into this to keep my hands busy, otherwise I'm gonna make weird hand movements and we don't want that. If you're wondering what I'm using on my face during this video, I will write everything down in the description box below. So let's get into the crime!
Fuck. Down, yeah. I've been feeling so down, yeah.
First, a little disclaimer. I'm going to be talking about abuse and rape, and there will be some graphic descriptions of crime scene in this video. So if that's anything that triggers you, maybe don't watch this video. Also, I don't mean any disrespect to the victims or the family of the victims. I'm just here to tell the story and talk about what happened. If I sound sarcastic or like I'm making fun of the situation, I'm not. I don't mean any disrespect in any way, shape, or form. So this case really makes you question everything and everyone that you know. If you don't have trust issues now, you will have trust issues at the end of this video. I feel like these hoops make me look like a pirate. Anywho, this case took place very close to my hometown, which is great. Also, if you hear any weird noises, my window is open because otherwise I'm going to have a heat stroke. We don't want that. So, a little backstory about Ronald Janssen. Ronald Janssen was born in 1971 on September 6th. He has 3 siblings, an older brother, an older sister, and 1 younger sister. His mom was a stay-at-home mom and his dad worked in the mines. Now his dad was a very violent guy. He would beat his wife and his kids, and he had very aggressive outbursts, like really out of the blue he would get aggressive over nothing. Now Ronald, he had good grades in school. Even if his home situation wasn't all that good, he did have good grades in school, nothing spectacular, but he didn't fail. Also, he didn't really have to do much for it. He was very smart, but he got bullied when he was 14 because he had a little bit of a lisp when he talked, which is just a very silly reason to bully anybody, but you know, kids gotta be kids. Now, instead of going to a teacher to ask for help to make it stop, Ronald Janssen decided to take measures into his own hands and bring a baseball bat to school to teach these kids a lesson. But of course, this got him expelled because, a little bit, questionable. So he moved to a different school and his friends from that time say that he wasn't anything special, just an ordinary kid. He acted really tough sometimes, even though he wasn't. But besides that, they never really noticed anything weird. Now, the situation at home got worse and worse until one day his mother wanted to divorce his dad. So Ronald's dad said, "I'll move out, I'll go live with my dad, but you still have to do my laundry and bring me a meal every night." So she did. So Ronald Janssen's mother would do the laundry of his dad and bring him a warm meal every night so she could keep the house, stay there with the kids. If that's something that you're comfortable with, you do you. Thought it was a bit of a weird situation, but anyway. After all of that, he went to college. He went to study to be an engineer. He went to Hasselt. And because he was so smart, he passed all of his exams. It went very fast. So for his last year, he decided to go and study at a different university, and he went to Leuven, a big city full of students. Now, his financial situation wasn't very good, so he had to volunteer to get a free place to live. And he volunteered at a house where women who were abused could go to get help. Very ironic. Now, he met his wife in his last year of going to college, Natalie. She was from the Netherlands and she was 3 years older than him. She was from the Netherlands. He met his wife in the last year of college Her name was Natalie, and she was from the Netherlands. So in 1995, they both moved to Genk, where Ronald went to work in a cardboard box factory. But he had this passion to become a teacher. He really wanted to be teaching kids. So he gets a job as a teacher in technical design. And he was good at his job. His students really liked him. All of his co-workers really liked him. He was just a normal guy. Then in 1998, his first daughter was born. And they moved to Loksbergen, a different little town. Then 3 years later, they got their second daughter. And from there on out, everything just went downhill. At some point, his wife divorced him and accused him of abusing her. But later she decides to drop the charges and do co-parenting with him. So weird. You know, somebody would abuse you. You don't let your kids go there. So they never really know if it really happened or she was just talking shit. But if you hear the rest of the story, you're gonna think that maybe she was right. So at the end of 2007, a girl with the name of Aniek van Uitsel went missing. She was driving home from a party at night and she never arrived home. She was supposed to be home around 4 and her mom woke up around that time and saw that she wasn't home yet. So she stayed up and she waited for her, but she never showed up. So to give you a little timeline, so at 4 a.m. she was supposed to be home. Around 6 a.m. her mother decides to call her phone and she doesn't pick up. It does ring, but she doesn't pick up. And then like 2 minutes later she tries again and it goes straight to voicemail. So she starts calling the friends of Aniek, the ones that she had the phone number of, to ask them, do you know where she is? Did she go home with any of you? And they were all like, no, she left before we did. We thought that she would be home by now. So her mother decides to go and drive around to see if they can find anything. Maybe maybe they can find her bike, anything. But they didn't find anything. So her dad starts calling the hospital to ask if anybody of the name of Aniek van Uitsel came in last night. Maybe she had an accident, maybe she fell somewhere because she drank too much. But the hospital didn't have anybody by that name, didn't have anybody by that description of how she looked that came in that night. And then at 12:30 in the afternoon, they decide to call the police to give her up as a missing person. And the police start their search party right away. So they go to all the streets that she could have taken from the party back to her house, see if they can find anything. Blood traces, a broken light from her bicycle, anything. But they didn't find it. They didn't find any leads. Then the mother of Aniek, she called Child Focus and they made a poster and they also start calling everybody that was at that party. So they questioned everybody. Did you see somebody that she was talking to? Did you see anybody slip something into her drink? You know, you never know. But everybody was like, no, she left with her friends and that's the last time I saw her. And her friends that she was supposed to leave with told the police that they were still talking to some guys and Aniek really wanted to go home, so she left by herself because she didn't want to wait anymore. The last trace that the police had found from her was a text that she sent to her boyfriend around 5 a.m. and the text said, "It's 5 a.m, it's time to go home. I felt sick and had to throw up. I was crying for a little bit, but it's time to go home now. Good night." And that's the last thing that anybody had heard from her. After 4 days of her being gone, her parents decide to do a press conference on live television to tell her that if she had run away, she could still go home and nobody would be mad, or if she was taken, for the people who had her to please let her go. Then on May 3rd, 6 days after she disappeared, a body was found in the Albert Canal. A man who was working in the factory across from the canal, he saw a weird package laying inside of the water, so he called the police. And the package was very heavy because it was weighed down by 2 cement bricks, probably so it would sink to the bottom. So at this point, they don't know who the body is. So they take it out of the water, take it to the hospital where they research it. But the body was already decomposing, and because of the water, it was really difficult to recognize the person. So they had to look at the teeth and like scars on her body. And the parents of Aniek told the police that she had broken her leg when she was a child. So from that operation, she had a scar on her leg, and that's how they recognized her. So they told the parents that they found her, and they were just devastated. Of course, they still had hope that somebody had taken her, but that she was still alive, and now that hope was just gone. So they were investigating the body to know the cause of death, and her skull was bashed in, so she died of blunt force trauma. and there were like traces of blood around the edges of the wound on her head, but the rest of the body was completely clean. That pointed out that the killer, he did this very strategically. He really thought about this. Because he did all of this, the police could tell that he was either going to do it again or that he already had done it. So it was a serial killer. Since the investigation of Annick didn't really lead anywhere, they just had to wait until he would hit again and would make a mistake this time. Then 2.5 years later, the police find a burning car on the side of a highway. When they investigate the car after it burned down, they find a body in the back seat. After further investigation, they also find a human body in the trunk of the car. Now, the bodies were completely burned, so identification was almost impossible. The police also thought that maybe it was like a suicide, that somebody had somebody in the trunk of the car and then set themselves on fire. But they also found bullets. So that's how they knew that this was a murder investigation instead of a suicide. Now, the car was registered under the name of Kevin Paulus. So the police went to the parents of Kevin to ask them, is this your son's car? And they identified it. So they asked his parents, do you know who was in the car with him at that point? And they told the police that it was probably his girlfriend, Shana Appletans. So apparently that night, they went to celebrate New Year's because it was on the 2nd of January. So they went to a cafe with the whole family, and Kevin and Shana were tired, so they left early. And that's the last time that anybody saw them alive. Now, because everything was burned, it was very hard to find any evidence of what happened besides the bullets. Thankfully, the police received an anonymous call from somebody who told them that the family of Shana had a lot of fights with their neighbor. So the police went and arrested their neighbor. Now, 3 guesses who their neighbor was. If you guessed Ronald Janssen, you are correct. So they take him to the police station where they question him, and he tells them that they had a lot of fights, but he didn't really like to talk to them, so he didn't really know what happened. Then during an investigation of his house, the police find a gun hidden in a bag of cat food. So they question him about this. They're like, why did you hid a gun in a bag of cat food? And he told them that he had gotten that gun from his dad who passed away, and he hid it in the bag of cat food because he didn't have a license for it. Because here in Belgium, you have to have a license to own a gun. So crazy people don't have a gun. He got one anyway. So the police asked him where he was on the night of the 2nd of January. And he said that he was at home, watched television, and then went to sleep. But he didn't have an alibi because his kids weren't home. So then he started talking about the fights that he had with the Appletans family. He said that they would scream at his children when they were playing outside and make like animal noises to his little girls. And that sometimes when he was outside, Kevin would drive up to him really fast and then just avoid him at the last second and then scream "stupid pig" at him while Shana was in the car with him. Now the Appletans family, they said that this was absolutely not true and they never did something like this. They did have fights, but it was about weeds growing into somebody else's garden or trees hanging over. So then on the 6th of January, he started to confess to what happened. He told the police that he was standing outside because he had trouble sleeping a lot. And he saw Kevin and Shana driving back home. So they did what they always did. They would drive up to him really fast and then just avoid him and then laugh at him. This time, something snapped inside of him. So he told them that he ran inside, grabbed his gun and a mask, and then he went up to the house of the Appletans family where Shana and Kevin were. So he knocks on the door. Shana opens the door and he threatens them with a gun. He tells them to get back into the car and to start driving. So they drive to a field somewhere where he tells Kevin to stop the car because he was driving, and he shot Kevin twice in the head. So at this point, Shana is freaking out, of course. She just saw her boyfriend get shot in front of her. So she's begging for her life and asking him what she had to do for him to just let her go. So he tells her that if she has sex with him, he would let her go. So she agrees, but he tells the police that because of the stress, he couldn't do it. So when she turned around, he shot her twice. Then he took the car and drove it somewhere else next to a highway a little bit farther away, and he poured gasoline over it to set it on fire. But this isn't the only thing that he confesses to. He also tells the police that when he had these urges, he would start walking around or he would drive to a different city and he would attack women. Usually he would drive up to like dorm rooms and knock on the door and then get inside with some excuse, and then he would attack these women and rape them. Sometimes he would also go to festivals and just crawl into these girls' tents. And then he mentions the name of Annick van Uytsel. So he starts telling about this night when he had this urge again. And he tells the police that these urges weren't to kill anybody. He just wanted to have some affection. So he had this urge for affection again. So he went to drive around and he saw Annick on her bicycle. So he had blocked the road in front of her and then pulled her off of her bike, tied her hands together with duct tape, and put her in his car. And he tells the police officers that this was the first time that he brought any of the girls to his house. Usually he would go to the tents or go to their dorm rooms. But that just didn't satisfy him anymore. So he took her to his house where he laid her on his bed, but he didn't rape her, he just wanted to sleep next to her. So first he didn't want to kill her because he just wanted to spend the night with her and then drop her off somewhere far away. But because he got into a fight with his neighbors where they screamed his name, he was afraid that she was going to tell the police who had kidnapped her. So he, in his eyes, had to kill her now. So he killed her in his bathroom, cleaned everything up with bleach, put her in the bag, and then he dumped her in the canal. So because all of this, he went to court, of course, because he confessed, and he was charged with kidnapping, rape, abuse, torture, and triple murder. So he got life in prison, of course, thank God. Now, therapists say that he is the perfect example of a psychopath because he blended in perfectly. Nobody expected this. If you see a picture of him or if you see a little clip of him at a party, you would think that he's just a normal guy. He didn't have any sympathy with his victims, and therapists who talked to him in prison think that these urges that he felt was to try to feel the love that he saw in all of his friends, but because he was a psychopath, he couldn't. You know, he didn't have empathy, he couldn't feel anything there, because psychopaths are just very good at mimicking emotions, but they don't really feel it. So these urges that he had to feel affection was just to try to get as close as possible to feeling this. And at first it would work by going to these girls' dorm rooms or crawling into their tents, but after a while, it's like with drugs, you know, you smoke weed, you feel great, but after a while you want more and more and more. So he had the same, and that's when he kidnapped Annick van Uytsel. But the reason that he made a mistake in the second one was because it wasn't as random as all the other ones. He would just drive around or walk around and then pick his victims very randomly. But because he snapped at that moment and wanted to hurt his neighbors, he made a mistake. So, you know, the story of Annick van Uytsel is just the typical wrong place, wrong time kind of deal. That's it for this case. I did the rest of my makeup off camera because I'm not very good at finishing my makeup in time. Gotta work on that. So that's it for this story. He's still in jail. They're also still investigating all the rapes and assaults that he did. But thank God that he's still stuck and not out on the streets, because in Belgium you never know. I mean, in my last story they also let one of them go, so what a magical country, innit? So if you like this video, if you like this look, if you like me, don't forget to subscribe and push that like button. I try to upload every week, mostly on Thursdays. Gotta keep a tight schedule. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.